The Russian sleep experiment, real inspiration. We've all heard of the internet legend, the Russian sleep experiment video, where prisoners are kept awake for 15 days and spiral into madness. But here's the truth. While the creepypasta is fiction, it's based on real Soviet research. During the Cold War, Soviet scientists studied extreme sleep deprivation on humans and animals. The results were terrifying. Paranoia, hallucinations, mental breakdowns, and even physical collapse. Though the infamous story exaggerates the gore, the real science showed how fragile the mind becomes without rest. It remains one of the craziest experiments ever attempted on the human brain. Project MK Ultra, the CIA's mind control project. Imagine your government secretly drugging you with LSD without your knowledge. That's exactly what happened in the CIA MK Ultra project. Between the 1950s and 70s, the CIA carried out unethical human experiments in the name of Cold War intelligence. They used drugs, hypnosis, and even electroshock therapy, hoping to develop techniques for interrogation and mind control. Many subjects never consented. Some were prisoners, some psychiatric patients, and some everyday people who just ended up in the wrong place. When exposed in the 1970s, MK Ultra shocked the world. But because many files were destroyed, we may never know the full scope of what the CIA did in the name of science and security. Unit 731, Japan's Nightmare Experiments. If you think psychology experiments gone wrong are dark, wait until you hear about Unit 731. During World War II, Japan's military set up a secret facility in Manchuria where doctors performed brutal experiments on prisoners of war and civilians. Victims were exposed to biological weapons, infected with plague, and even subjected to vivisections without anesthesia. Frostbite experiments froze and thawed limbs to study tissue damage. It's estimated that tens of thousands of people died in these experiments. And shockingly, after the war, many of the scientists avoided punishment by sharing their research with the United States. The Stanford Prison Experiment, Quiet Rage. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo set out to study how power changes human behavior. He turned Stanford's basement into a fake prison, assigning students to play either guards or prisoners. Within days, the guards became cruel, humiliating the prisoners with punishments and psychological abuse. The situation spiraled so badly that the Stanford Prison Experiment, sometimes called Quiet Rage, had to be shut down after just 6 days instead of 2 weeks. This case is now one of the most infamous psychology experiments gone wrong, showing how ordinary people can commit shocking acts when placed in positions of unchecked authority. The monster study when children became test subjects. In 1939, researchers at the University of Iowa ran an experiment on orphans, and it quickly turned disturbing. Half the children were given positive speech therapy, while the other half were harshly criticized and told they had speech defects, even if they didn't. This became known as the monster study experiment, and the results were devastating. Many children developed stutters, anxiety, and lifelong self-esteem issues. It's now remembered as one of the most unethical human experiments in U.S. history, proof that words can wound as deeply as physical harm. Milgram's obedience experiment, the shock machine. What would you do if a scientist told you to shock someone, even if they screamed in pain? In 1961, psychologist Stanley Milgram set out to answer that question. Volunteers were instructed to administer increasing electric shocks to a student whenever they got an answer wrong. The student was an actor, but the volunteers didn't know that. And disturbingly, most people continued giving shocks, even when they believed they were causing extreme pain. The Milgram experiment revealed a chilling truth about human nature. Ordinary people will obey authority, even if it means hurting others. David Reimer, the John Jones case. Perhaps the most tragic case on this list is the story of David Reimer. After a botched circumcision in the 1960s, psychologist John Money convinced David's parents to raise him as a girl. This became known as the David Reimer documentary case, or the John Jones experiment. Money believed it would prove that gender identity was purely social, but David never accepted the forced identity. He eventually transitioned back to living as male, but the trauma haunted him. In 2004, he died by suicide, a heartbreaking reminder of the human cost of experimental arrogance. So which of these creepiest experiments shocked you the most? Was it the horror of Unit 731R, the cruelty of the monster study, or the quiet horror of the Stanford Prison Experiment? Let me know in the comments.